Yeah, I think in life, man, you always gotta have your boundaries. You gotta have your priorities. No matter, even if I'm in the game, I had priorities and I had things that I wouldn't do that I had already set apart. Money could not be my top priority. There were certain things that I wouldn't deal at night. You know what I'm saying? I know what came along with that. I wouldn't mess with lower level drug addicts because I know it came along with that. And then also I made sure I kept a job with what I was doing because that kept me off the street for X amount of hours. So I think I was methodical in my wrongdoing, because at the end of the day, I don't depend on nobody to take care of me. I can't be responsible for another man, so I never roll with anybody. I do all my driving.
Mm,
There was rules, that I had to set for myself. At the end of the day, the game is to survive.
mm.
And so especially in our 20s, I often tell people, I didn't live my 20s. I survived every one of them because that was the time I made the worst decisions, you know what I'm saying? And I lost people, death caught some, prison caught the rest, and so I saw that, and also with that methodical thinking, I saw when it was time to exit that.
Welcome to the Off the Floor podcast. What is off the floor? Off the floor is a mentality. You either eating off the floor, which is hunger, or you're getting off the floor, which is a bounce back. We all go through that in life.
Off the floor with my papa and your host, Calvin Wilson. Peace. Peace, birth Steelers.
I want to introduce you guys to someone that I think is a superstar. Just an upcoming superstar. Just already a superstar, not only in his community, but I think in all of the Southeast and probably in the country. But you guys don't know him. I want to introduce this guy to you because I think he's special in every way. This guy is Antwon Lamar Nixon. Antwon, man, I'm glad to have you on my podcast today, man. I've been knowing you for a while, but the Antwon Lamar, I asked you about this the other day. I thought it was a twist to the Kendrick Lamar thing, but it's not. This is what I want you to start with your childhood, your parents, your siblings, and your family members.
Yeah, man. Again, man, thank you for even having me on here and for the wonderful introduction. My parents, man, still married to this day, man. Got married young, been together over 30 something years.
Wow.
I have one sibling, a younger sister, about 3 years younger, man. Childhood, kind of grew up in Folkston, man, in the sticks, man. For my first couple years, and then I moved to the Dixie Lake on the other side of the tracks, is what we call it, man, and kind of cut my teeth over that way. But I've always found myself back in the sticks, so.
Well, let's do this. Let's describe Folkston, Georgia, as a child. How was Folkston, Georgia, for you as a child? What kind of setting was it?
Ah, man, Folkston remind me it was nothing but community, bro. I can go anywhere, anybody's home. I think we was all on the same economical level, so you can borrow from anybody. Truly, all my inspiration come from that type of community. You know what I'm saying? It was all love back then. So yeah, Folkston was a great community to grow up in, man.
Okay. Looking at it from your aspect as a kid, and when you're saying it was a great community, but how about the separation in community? What did you ever see that? Did you see that part of it where it was a little different for some than it was for others?
I didn't realize this until I was much older, but I had some of my friends. They nicknamed me Spoiled Rotten.
Mm.
I never really understood that name as a child growing up, with these cats. But I realized as I got older, probably right around high school, that the upbringing that I had, the parents that I had, was different from their household. That's when I saw the first separation of the balance of a household. And I don't want to say two-parent household because if it's not positive, then two parents don't make a difference. But because what my parents offered me, we didn't have more materialistic things.
Right.
But the type of environment we was raised in, that's what showed me how I was a bit different as far as for how they saw me. Not how I saw myself, but how they saw me.
So you mean your foundation? Your foundation was solid.
My foundation was solid. I mean, I'm every bit of that. Both of my parents, instilled in me solid things that I keep with me to this day. So, and then looking at some of the decisions that some of my younger friends made, I see why they ended up where they ended up at, because they didn't have the principles that was laid down to fall back on.
So okay. Coming up, were you good in sports?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, when you were younger.
Yeah, I think good to me was I was always confident, man. You know what I'm saying? Like coming up, I spent a lot of time with that ball, like day, night. So good was just a thing because I was confident. You could be talented but not confident, and that affects your game. But I was always confident in the work that I do, and that just traveled with me.
So going from, did y'all have middle school ball?
Yeah.
Okay, how was you in middle school? I mean, were you the
Oh,
guy?
Yeah, I mean, I've never not been the guy. I was
Wow.
always the leader on my team. I always played. Matter of fact, my first team that I played on, I wanted to be on the other rec team that
Right.
all my friends was on.
Right.
But the way fate would have it, I was on a team with all Caucasian.
Right.
But that taught me something,
That's
how to
good.
make others better. So I learned to love that. Playing from the underdog perspective and making other people around you better.
Man, that's awesome because I had the same type of experience, you know what I'm saying? And that's awesome. So going into like high school, and who were some of the guys you played with in high school?
Me and Champ played all the way up from rec all the way to high school.
Champ Bailey, that
Champ
is.
Bailey,
Right.
yeah. Boss Bailey was a part of that team as well as his younger brother. Julian Roberts, that's another one that I played with.
Charles Doze.
Charles Doze, yeah, that's my younger cousin. He was on that team as well. Yep.
Okay. And you have a cousin that's a legend over in Folkston.
Yeah,
His name is Curtis Slick Nixon.
that's right.
Did you learn from him?
Nah, the only thing I learned from Kurt was something indirect.
Mm.
I learned how if you talented enough, people would fear that because they feared his name. You know what I'm saying? And what I understood was that you have to understand people's game. Once I learned his game, he was nothing to fear, not even for me. He had to respect me then. So basketball was something that you had to learn and pay attention to. Also apply those same principles. He's a legend, can't take nothing from it because he put that work in and put it out there. But what got me was the fact that when I saw how people feared him, that's kind of what I set myself off to be feared, not to be liked.
This is one of the reasons I have this guy on the podcast because I've been knowing him a long time. I saw him when he was smaller and younger, but I mean he's always had this same confidence, this same study of, I think, the enemy. I think he studied the enemy and then he took the stuff and he went with it. And this cat's demeanor has always been the same. It's always been cool, even when everybody else around him was hotheads. So in your high school career, like you had a great high school career, right?
Yeah, I did. I'm a selfless, unselfish person. So when it came to basketball, I never looked for offense. I was a defender.
Right.
Offense came easy to me, so I never thought about scoring. I just could score at will. So if I was probably more aggressive or more selfish basketball.
Is that bragging?
No, that's not bragging at all.
That's
it's confidence.
Good. That's good.
Because I chose not to be offensively minded. Here's why: because I realized in order for me to win, I got to stop the best player. I didn't care about my offense. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I looked at it like this: can you play defense? Because I know what I'm breaking, but I know I'm gonna play defense. I knew a lot of cats didn't care about defense. That's why I would check the best players. Because if they ain't ready to play defense, they're gonna have a problem with me. I ain't worried about having a problem with them because I'm gonna play defense. Offense is secondary.
Did that come from the upbringing? Did that come from your upbringing? Did you get that from the upbringing, or did you just get this from just being the person that you are?
No, that came from an upbringing, man. Coming up in Folkston, man, we ain't played nothing but half court ball. We played in the phone booth. Up on that court. I played with everybody older than me, like Slick and all them OGs, House Cat, Mike, Houston, real street legends out there. And they didn't need your offense. So when they picked me up to finally run, I just had to find my niche on what I could do. They didn't need me to score.
So you had to wait. You had to wait to play until you could play.
I remember being called up, bro. You know what I'm saying? I remember playing on the other end, and one day they called me up. I never looked back. I was young, though. I was still probably better out of middle school, maybe 7th, 8th grade when I got that real call. By the time 9th grade, I was something to deal with.
So with all that being said, with the sports thing, did you go to college?
Nah, man, that's on me, man. I had the opportunity, but a lot of I didn't have that push that I probably needed or that guidance right out of school, man. That's why I'm so passionate about guiding kids in their direction because once again, talent can only take you so far.
That's what's so incredible about what you have achieved this far is because you don't have the education. If we look at your background, if we go back and we look at the background, we pull the backgrounds and we put them out. Your background has no education. But I was just thinking about this today. You don't have to be a teacher to teach you.
Nah. I think we have to understand what education is and how different it is from schooling. See, we all school, but I am educated.
No doubt.
Educated simply means it comes from a Latin word which is educo. It means to draw or to develop. So if you look at who I am today, you can tell I'm educated.
No doubt.
But looking at my resume, you would only see that I went to school.
This cat here got some of the best one-liners that you're gonna ever hear. You just gotta go to his Facebook. Hey, and while we talking right now, look, man, like, subscribe, follow this podcast. I mean, a lot of people watching and they view it, but man, do me a favor and like and subscribe and follow and share to everyone because I mean, I want to be in this thing for a long time and I want to bring great content to you because I think this guy here has some great information for you. So following your high school career, having a great high school career, did you have any opportunities to go to school though?
Yeah, I did. I looked at those opportunities, man. I think that's where I kind of was in my head too much. I should have took those.
What were they? Tell me.
I think like St. John's down in South Florida, Flagler,
Junior colleges,
and I took it as, I'm gonna be straight with
a
you.
slap
I
in
took
the
it
face.
as a slap in the face, bro. Because I went there and I schooled them boys.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would I play here? You know what I'm saying? I didn't have the guidance I needed to tell me. And then at that time, you gotta think, this is 95. No one really knew that you can make it from that way. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like if I didn't go like D1, and my coach really wasn't trying to put me in the best position, he wasn't like that. You know what I'm saying? So we slacked on those opportunities.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna help you coach on this because I think from the time that I was in school, it was the same thing. We had to. I went to Bethune, then I went to South Georgia or whatnot. A lot of it was the recruiting. They wasn't coming to see us.
Nah, we didn't get that. And I gotta say, because our football team was highly ranked at that time when I was in school. That coach had those recruiters coming there. So I can't let my coach off the hook here because you could have got him there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember meeting somebody years later and they literally, when they ran into me, they was like, I thought you'd be pro by now. That was the moniker on me for years, you know what I'm saying? Like for years, because once again, it's talent, but talent needs to be guided and nurtured, or it falls through the cracks, and so I just kind of fell through the cracks and, so be it.
I agree now. I agree. You were a baller. And so with not taking those opportunities because you didn't have you.
Exactly, bro.
You didn't have me. You didn't have others out there today that's done it and see the faults in or the cracks in the system because sometimes we depend on coaches and we depend on people at the school to take care of our own when there's somebody out in the street should know and that can help.
Yeah, definitely, man. I always tell people nowadays that I help, that I didn't have a me for me. I figured it out. Everything about my life, I figured it out.
Wow.
Everything. So, but I want to close the gap, man, because I lost time. And so that's my aim, man, is make sure I can close the gap. It took me, 15, 20 years to figure that out. So the best thing I could do is give that wisdom back. I always tell my mentor kids, man, I want to give you my experience without experiencing it. You know what I'm saying? That's the best thing I can do for them.
I call myself the hood renovator.
Sure.
And that's leaving my world or my hood better than I found it. I think it's each and every one of our jobs to do that, and man, you're doing it over there. Now, okay, so you didn't choose to go to college. What did you choose?
I choose what was left. When an idle mind is the devil's playground, right? Once I left Folkston, man, I got into Jacksonville, man, and it got real kind of heavy in those streets and stuff, and made my way there. But once again, that was a choice that I made. I didn't have to do it. It was a choice that I made. Ironically, I met the man that would bring me into that game on the basketball court.
Right.
He recruited me to play for a league, then a semi-pro league. But he had other activities that he was doing also behind the scene. I ended up moving in and living with him, and he showed me the game, man. Gave me my first digital scale, and I went to work from there.
So you didn't go pro in basketball, but you went pro.
In that game.
I mean, look, you got to go pro some kind of way.
You got to make it, man.
And so in that world, man, how did you maneuver? How did you maneuver in that world? Because we talked a little bit about this, me and you, before, but how was your mindset in that game? Because some of us get in this game and we go and it goes reckless.
Right.
But for you, it was always thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
It was always thought of, and just explain some of the ways that you kept yourself away from some of the stuff that some of the other traps that other people fell into.
Yeah, I think in life, man, you always got to have your boundaries. You got to have your priorities. No matter, even if I'm in the game, I had priorities and I had things that I wouldn't do that I had already set apart. Money could not be my top priority. There were certain things that I wouldn't deal at night. You know what I'm saying? I know what came along with that. I wouldn't mess with lower level drug addicts because I know what came along with that. And then also I made sure I kept a job with what I was doing because that kept me off the street for X amount of hours. So I think I was methodical in my wrongdoing, because at the end of the day, I don't depend on nobody to take care of me. I can't be responsible for another man. So I never roll with anybody. I do all my driving.
Mm-hmm.
There was rules, that I had to set for myself. At the end of the day, the game is to survive. And so especially in our 20s, I often tell people, I didn't live my 20s. I survived every one of them because that was the time I made the worst decisions, you know what I'm saying? And I lost people, death caught some, prison caught the rest, and so I saw that, and also with that methodical thinking, I saw when it was time to exit that.
What was the clue? What was the clue? What gave you the clue that it was time to exit?
I saw the walls closing in. I realized that it wasn't luck no more that was keeping me, man. Things were just missing me. You know what I'm saying? I was in a couple shootouts. I got stronged on one time. The guy didn't pull the trigger. There was a lot going on, and so when I saw that, I realized that God give everybody an opportunity, you know what I'm saying? And so I saw mine, but I also realized that my way leaving I couldn't stay there and continue, you know what I'm saying? So because it was just too much going on in my life that I had to move. To lead that life.
So how many years did you stay?
I was there from 95 to 2004.
Wow.
2005, yeah.
Wow. And then you decided to move back home.
Yeah, I had no choice. By that time I hadn't had my little daughter, at the time, and she required my attention. She was wasn't even 1 year old yet. So I had, a new aspiration in life, and so it just came to me that I didn't want my family to either come and see me in prison or to visit my grave. And so when I made that decision, at the end of the day, man, when your morals begin to matter in the game, you need to leave. That's when you're the most dangerous.
Right.
Harm can come to you because you care. When I was out there, I didn't really care. You know what I'm saying? I left Antwon in Folkston. You know what I'm saying? Took Cheez with me, and then you become a wolf among wolves. And so, but when I would come back to Folkston, nobody knew what I did. I would still be Antwon.
Yeah.
Not even my family. I kept the two lives separate.
Hey, listen, yeah, this Cheez, my bad. This is how I know. I know him as Cheez.
That's right.
And I've always known him that way. Okay, so this 2025, you say this was 2004 that you went back.
Yeah.
So going back to Folkston, what was your mission?
My mission was to literally simple, man. One move, get my life together, and I knew no other way of getting clarity in decision making but to go back to church. I was raised in church, so that was the piece that I need. I think every man who's in disarray needs a peaceful environment to see his way out. So for me, just going to church would give me time to just clear my head, find the right path.
So how long did you sit in church? I mean, how long before you decided to get up and walk this path that you're walking now? And when I say walk this path, I'm talking about this path on like regenerating, regrowing.
That would take another 4 or 5 years, before I really kind of, we start out going to church, but then you got to actually be that. So that would take some about 4 or 5 years. But I will say a pivotal moment came when I left my homegrown church, where my dad's family went at, and I went to Mount Carmel, which is where I actually pastor now, which was my first church. I used to live across the street from the church, play on the church ground there. It was when I got there where leadership came into play, because before I'd have been cool with just sitting in the pews going to church.
Right.
But leadership came in there, and then I started to see that God had a plan for my life that was bigger than what I could imagine.
Well, I think we talked a little earlier before about some things, and I mean, about even coming on here and doing this podcast. Before you just come from Atlanta, where they just wrote an article about you and everything, and I'm kind of upset that they wrote that article before we did this. But I'm just so glad that you're here with me today, and so we walk with the leadership, and then what leadership roles did you take?
I think one of the, especially as far as for what I got going on today, with the thing in Atlanta, speaking to senators and all that came with my environmental advocacy. And in 2021 is when I I got outside in the environment, but I got to back up to 2020 because I had an epiphany. I had shoulder surgery in November 2019. And that had me out for 14 months. And so at that time, we was just entering the COVID phase in 2020. And it was in May of 2020, man, I recall just trying to figure things out. And I remember I was sitting at home at the church, and I asked God, 2 questions. How could I be better, and how could the church be better because of this? And we all got to go through this. And God just spoke to me to take the church outside. And so I said, if I take the church outside, I'm only talking to the same people that's inside, but on the church ground still. And that's when he said, take it in the sticks. In the park, where the drugs are, bring the light to the darkness, Isaiah 9:2. A great light come to them that sat in darkness and set the captives free. Then I understood mission. God took me outside so that I can pay attention to things going on outside. We've always known the church as a pillar in all communities, right? Especially in the Black community. But what I saw was that the church was not shining that light where it needed to. We always want people to come to church, but the church don't go to them.
Right.
And so that was my call. And that opened me up to other things outside of the church itself, which is the environment, what actually matters. So I believe in doing the work that matters, not just necessarily doing church.
And what impresses me more is you crossed the barrier lines of race, economics, all of that, without having that base education that everybody thinks that you should have. It's just carrying yourself as a man, carrying that confidence in as a man that gives you the respect. And you give respect.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing to get you through all the doors is you come in humble, but talking big. I mean, carrying a big stick. And that big stick don't have to be, violent. It just has to be like, okay, this guy is not taking no for an answer. And I think when you walk through the door, that's the aura that you give off.
Yeah, I call that sophisticated ignorance. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I got goals. And
Say that again.
Sophisticated ignorance. You know what I'm saying? So, it's how you do it. You know what I'm saying? There's some things I ignore simply because I know it gets on somebody.
I think I've been sophisticated ignorant my whole entire life. I do.
Yeah, so sometimes, man, you gotta push your weight around without physically doing that.
Right.
And so, in that world of I think they respect your mind more than your muscle. And once I understood that part of the game, that this is all philosophy. You know what I'm saying? So
we talked about the parables. You talk in parables a lot. I love how you talk in parables because you give the people a chance to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you telling people something, they ain't gonna listen. But if you just put it out there and allow them, like I said, whoever has ears, let them hear.
Right. I think at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying, for whatever it is that someone wants to do or things, they gotta want to do that for themselves. But you can't tell them. The best teachers in life show you what to look at, but don't tell you what to see. So, that's my goal, is to just, show you what to look at. I'll show you what direction, but I don't tell you what to see. Once you figure that out, then I know what level we on.
That's really good. Hey, okay, so sowing seeds, when did that come into?
That came that sowing seeds came right after the church outside vision. 3 months later, after I did the first church outside event, I wanted to give back on purpose with purpose. I felt like the church was always asking. I don't mean this in a negative. They were always asking, but never seeing really giving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to give back on purpose with purpose. And what I mean by that is that no strings attached. And one of the first hurdle that I had to get over was when people would come to sowing seeds events, they would always ask us how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
That took over a year for people to realize that I was doing it for them.
And they didn't want nothing back.
I've never asked for anything back. My goal with sowing seeds is biblical. It comes from Matthew 13:8, where it says, we sow on good ground and we receive 100-fold, 60-fold, or 30-fold. So that tells me that it's fruitful. But also in the book of Acts, it says that the crowd or the community brought all their resources to the apostles' feet and laid them there, and they dispersed it equally.
To everybody.
To everybody. So that's what I did. I said, well, I'm going to use my relationship with people. Like I said, I cross all boundaries.
That's right.
Black, white. I don't have no preferences, no biases. At the end of the day, we either for each other or against each other. That's the only boundary that we establish, right? And so I said, let me use my relationship with who I have and who I know and let them pour into what I have, and I'll show them what I would do with it. And so at the end of the day, many hands make light work. So you may be doing something on the other side of town. I'm doing something on the other side, but nobody really feels that impact. But if we put it all in the middle, we can heal the whole town.
Right.
So it was taken from, all genres, whatever background it came from. It didn't matter about the amount because it all goes in, whether it's $1 or $1,000, it goes into one sum. So the work that I do, everyone contributes to that. Everyone is sowing seeds. We just own the name.
Right. So you just explained it, but give them another overview of it. Tell them the specifics of what sowing seed is. Okay. If anybody's out there that want to partner with you or anything like that, because man, listen, I'm telling you, the guy is doing great things in Charleston County over there, and it needed to be done.
Yeah,
it needed to be done. I mean, you got to up the playing field because the playing field has always been off balance. I don't care how you say it. I said something on the first podcast about Folkston has always been little brother and Camden is big brother. And it wasn't about the people in Folkston. It was about something. I had a little vendetta because somebody came at me the wrong way over there. And it wasn't anybody common. It was somebody else that came at me. And I just wanted to let them know, like, I'm me. I'm never backing down from anything. I don't care who you are or what kind of power you think you have. I'm never backing down. And so, but I want you to to know to let them know how you trying to even that playing field for the kids that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm actually doing, bro, is living in my own imagination. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, my reality is what I create.
Right.
So the best reality I knew is what we started from. You asked about the community I grew up in.
No doubt.
Well, I can't expect the community that's the new babies now to understand what that community is. They don't come from that.
Okay, stop right there. That's why I asked you, did you notice the difference when you were younger? Because that's the only way you can swing the balances.
Right. You got to get outside.
Because if you don't understand it, then it's normal. Right. And everything is normal, and it's supposed to be that way. And some things not supposed to be that way.
Nah, but you know what I'm saying? When you connect it, so there's a saying that says attached to nothing, connected to everything. See, when you connect it to everything, you see things differently.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we all have to mature to a point to where you see what your eyes is looking at. See, we all looking at something, but what do you see?
What do you see?
We all got different perspectives.
No doubt.
What I saw in reality was actually my own imagination. And so everything that I'm doing is bring it into manifestation.
Because God gives you...
He gives us revelation.
And he gives you the power to do that.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? It comes from him. So God works in the future. So as a visionary, we operate in the future, but we work in the present. You see what I'm saying? So so I think in the future. So everything that I'm doing is coming from I work from the front back. So I don't work from the present forward because that comes with too much opposition and it's burdensome to you. But I work from the future back where I can create that reality. It looks right to me. And then we start making things happen from that perspective. So yeah, I saw what was needed. You know what I'm saying? And when I think about, and I thought about this, that the age that I'm in, you know what I'm saying, I'm in the gap. You know,
Right.
the young people, I'm young enough to understand them and I'm old enough to respect my elders. But the two sides cannot understand each other.
No.
So that age that I'm in, I know how to talk with both of them. That's why I got much respect for both sides and I get respect from both sides.
I feel the same way that you do because we talk a lot about the kids don't have communication, or level or whatever, but they do. They can communicate with each other.
Yeah.
They just not picking up the phone when you want them to pick up the phone. So you have to understand it. And it's steady going forward. It's never going backwards.
Can't stop
It's never going to go back, And so for that, man, you have to respect those kids and you have to respect the older people and let them understand, like, well, I'll pick up the phone for you. I'll talk to you. I'll come sit down and have a conversation with you because that's important to them. That keeps them alive, And so, okay, with this vision and everything, I wanna like switch a little bit and get into what was your motivation behind it, as far as, because you told me, you say, man, I'm an introvert by nature, but you had someone in your life that they put this here, they put this fire that allowed this fire to continue to burn, not for yourself, but for her.
Oh, for sure. In 2015, my daughter died tragically and very suddenly. So life taught me real quick, real fast. I didn't have no time to react to that. It was just a response. So
I want you to lay her out for people so they can understand how you are now.
Yeah, so Anaya is the exact opposite of me and natural, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm an introvert. I'm a background person, you know what I'm saying? I'm inconspicuous, not outside outgoing type person like that, But from a very young child, man, she was just forthcoming, she was just moving fast. Like I don't even think she ever crawled, bro. It was like straight walking. And then she got right into community, doing community work. She helped kids, she was a leader, in her peer group. She joined the adult choir when she was like 7 or something.
Wow.
Just crazy singing and you know what I'm saying? And so very inspiring, but it's hard to notice greatness when it's happening. You know what I'm saying? Until you have to really reflect on that, So she I think she lived as what she was supposed to. And so I learned a lesson not to take another day for granted, and in doing so, I think now I've learned that I've just been living through her vicariously, so that fire that she had, I think she would have been doing exactly what I'm doing, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that was the mark. So I look at that situation like this right here. You know how when the space shuttle go up, right? It don't go up on its own power, go up with boosters. And then those boosters fall off. She was the booster. She was meant to prepare me to where I'm supposed to go and to take everything with me. So that's how we moving. So I have her with me, but she fell off so that I can take it further.
And what did that, and I'm trying to, I don't want to dig too far, man, but
you good.
I've never experienced anything like that. I lost my mom, but I've never lost a child, and I don't ever want to lose a child. But what did that do to your core family? I mean, how this you'll get off the, this the get off the flow moment. This is the moment that, that I be looking for on every show. Like, I don't see no further down than you could go at that moment. Who, what, and community, God, everything. What was it? What did it look like to you? What did it look like? What was your real feeling from the jump, and then from that point on, as far as healing and going out and doing?
The first thing that I knew I had to do was keep my family intact.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then also keep the community intact, because she was very well known and respected throughout her whole school and everything.
Right.
So the first thing I did is I laid the I ain't gonna say the rules. I just kind of laid the guidelines down about how we would take this. I just simply told them we're gonna lead it. We're gonna show them how to respond, because naturally in situations like that, we get emotional and we live in our emotion and we think in our emotion instead of thinking with our emotion. Bible says, be ye angry, but sin not. I mean, I think with my emotions. I don't think in my emotions. And so I took that as, okay, God already knew that was coming. Now, what are you gonna do about what's the purpose of it? You know what I'm saying? Like not to get see, I don't get angry, I get mad. And that's two different things. When you get mad, you get things done.
Yeah.
You know, so I knew that there was something greater for that because there was no other reason for it. It threw everybody. The doctors even was thrown off. She was supposed to come home. The last day I saw her, the doctor said she'll be home Thursday. That was on a Monday. A few hours later, she was gone. Before I can even get back to the hospital, she was already gone. So that's how quickly life. So I move with expediency, bro. You know what I'm saying? But because that taught me something like that. Take no, time is your greatest resource, and your mind is your greatest asset. You know what I'm saying? You got to keep those two things in line with each other. You know what I'm saying? So I keep my head right. You know what I'm saying? And I keep time where it's supposed to. That's why you see me move the way that I move, do what I do. You know, have the kind of passion that I have, man, because it can all be gone, bro.
Yeah. So tell me this: what does your community have to look forward to? What you got? What y'all got? What you got brewing? You got something brewing. You keep something going. I mean, tell them about the park and everything. Tell them about your the things that you're doing right now.
Yeah, I just start from the beginning, man. I worked my way up to the park since that's kind of like the cataclysmic effect so far. So when we first started sowing seeds, man, I just want to be the first to say, like, we started out with nothing. I started with nothing. No grants, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, hey, anybody want to like donate to a cause?
Right.
You know, within a year or so, we donated some equipment to the park. And then right after that, I ended up flying 5 young men, to DC. My first time going to DC, we flew up there, had a great experience, took them to all the monuments. We went inside the White House, you know, changed their life. I believe in exposing and educate. You know, I think you have to expose kids to what they read about.
Yeah, you can see stuff on TV, but once you can touch it and see it with your hands, that's why it's so important for people who make it to come back and be reality where I can put my hands on you.
It has to be tangible.
Tangible. It has to be tangible.
I try to bring that to their reality and let them know like it's a world outside of that. But I never talk about nothing I can't do. You know what I'm saying? And I always ask them, what is it that you would want to do? The following year, you know, I raised up about $25,000 off the muscle. You know, chartered a bus and took some of the OGs who ain't never went nowhere. Say, take y'all to DC. Went there for 3-4 days.
How did that do? How did that do for their minds? What did that do for them?
Oh man, dude, I just wanted them to relax. I didn't want them to have to worry about driving. Everything was taken care of. My homeboy up there, he's doing well up there, Johnny Medlock. So he had it laid out for me up there. I didn't have to want for nothing. You know, I just wanted the OGs to know that I see them.
Man, let me tell you something. I love that because sometimes, I mean, I think all the time, I ain't gonna say sometimes, we forget about like the older people. They still learning, man. They still need education. They still need to be pulled out and sought after and learn from them because look, just because they ain't got it don't mean they ain't got it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so to be able to broaden their perspective of life, man, that helps the next generation.
Well, you know, that came, I'm a very, you know, I guess intuitive person. I don't move spontaneous, but when I feel it, I go with it.
Go get it.
I was literally at some of the OG spot in the projects, man, and it was one cold November, and we just out there, they was sitting by a fire pit, man. I was like, man, I need to do something for these guys, man. And I just hollered out, hey, man, y'all want to go to DC? You know what I'm saying? They were like, yeah. I said, all right. 2 months later, I had a plan in order. You know, another thing I do, man, I don't talk about nothing until I know I could do it. So I didn't even speak on this right here. I just started doing this thing behind the scene, making things happen, getting a plan for it. You know, once I had it, you know, a plan for it, it was time to move in on it, you know. And so we was able to do that, change their life, man, they still talk about that to this day.
Listen,
like, literally talk about that.
I ain't talking about you being a pastor. You a pastor also.
Yeah.
Yeah, you a pastor also.
8 years.
But this is what I love about what you're saying and everything. Your pastoring is I mean, it's like it models Jesus. It models Jesus. If that's what you're doing, if you go and sit with the OGs, because the OGs sometimes ain't doing nothing good.
Right.
They ain't doing,
but they deserve good.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that one of my first church outside messages that I did when we started church outside was sinners wanting. It came from that particular passage you're talking about where it said Jesus went and ate with the sinners.
Right.
You know, I think we have as leaders, because passion is something that I do, is not who I am.
Right.
You know, so I understand my role, and I understand the importance of me closing that gap on people's stereotype and their perspective about what a pastor is. So when you say you're a pastor, some of us say you're a pastor, I'm like, what type of pastor am I? You know, because there's many pastors, you know what I'm saying? But it's what are they doing and what type are we? You know,
But that's why I introduced that last. Because if I start the show off saying he's a pastor such and such and such, it's gonna turn some people off too. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I wanted to build to that because your character, not your title.
Right.
Not your title that drove me into trying to get you here. Yeah. It wasn't your title. Right. It's the stuff that I've been watching you do silently, not saying, I mean, when we see each other, it's nothing but love because I have so much respect for you. But just the things that I've watched you do and the way you have represented not only yourself, but your community, your family, your state, whatever it is, they put you out there. Look, man, they pushing you out in front of Congress sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You sitting at the legislature, you know, you sitting in front of these people in Atlanta, and you doing well, and you representing them well. Yeah. And I'm proud to even know you, bro.
I appreciate it, man. I think, you know, we're always evolving. You know, I have evolved to this. One thing I tell people that when they try to put how I'm doing things, who I am and where I came from, you know, I think I tell them this, that people were waiting for me to become who I am. You know what I'm saying? So
butterfly.
You know what I'm saying? I had to, you know, metamorphosis, right? Yeah. You know, so we evolved to that. But I remember saying some years ago, we was putting up the basketball goals at the court and all, and me and my partner Cherry was out there just doing the work. And I just said something that I didn't really catch myself saying. I actually posted it, but he kept repeating. It took me about 4 times to really get what he was saying. But I just posted something. I said, you know, somebody is waiting for you to do something so that they can be something. And then he kept repeating that. And he actually said it to me again today when we was talking. And then I understood that people who helped me, I had to become visual to them. See, if I'm not who I am, they don't see me. The reason that they have to see me is because of who I became.
Say that again.
You know what I'm saying? I am who I am. You know what I'm saying? Because people see me now. But I had to become something for them to see me. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't know me. The only reason I'm known is because of who I became. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I stay focused on constantly evolving. Day to day, Paul said, I die daily. If I die daily, I live daily. But I'm not the same man I was yesterday.
Right.
I'm constantly growing. So I became the person that speaks in front of politicians. I was not always the person chosen to do this. So it gives hope to those that no matter what background you come from, there's many things you do. When I spoke to the kids at the New School of Atlanta, that's one of the things I spoke to them, because they talked about me purchasing the park. Like the question was, who buys a park?
You know purchased the park.
I purchased the park outright from the county.
Wow.
My childhood park. You know about the sticks.
Oh, I know. So I played baseball.
You know what I'm saying?
I played baseball there.
It's legendary. You know, that court is legendary, you know, to do that. But it's all a part of the revitalization process. My goal was to heal people. And I felt like getting that ownership of that shows what the ordinary can do and become extraordinary.
So tell me this. Okay, you're in Charlton County, Folkston, Georgia. Do you see yourself being able to expand, able to teach someone else how to do this? Do you see yourself speaking in front of people in communities in Detroit, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in LA, laying out the same plan? The plan seems small because it's small here, but it's still the same plan. It just will be a bigger platform.
Of course I do, man. Let me tell you, I saw myself before I became myself. What I mean is this: in 2017, I was out in San Francisco, and I seen this big globe. I took a picture with it, and I just kind of pointed at it. I wasn't that man, but I felt like I would own that world. And as I started to grow, sowing seeds and all, it was a global thing. You know, what I do is global. Like I say, I'm in Folkston. But the movement is a worldwide movement. If you talk to any of my sowing seeds team, they would tell you that we've been global. They just waiting to see us. You know, so, and this is something that I felt like could work in any community. You know, it's biblical, bro. My philosophy was this: if it worked in the Bible, it can work out the Bible. So I'm just taking biblical principles and put them into our world of reality, because this is what we need.
Well, right now I feel like Samuel Jackson. You know what I'm saying? He was talking about Kendrick Lamar. Yeah. But right now we have Antwon Lamar that's doing great things, man, and gonna do great things from this point forward. I am so proud to have him on this podcast. And hey, man, I'd like to thank you for coming on, for giving your story, man, to talking about your daughter, to talk about your inspiration, because this is the thing. I don't like to pull stuff from people, but I love pulling stuff from people if it's going to help somebody else. Sure. And this is what this show is all about. So, man, I appreciate you you being on my show, man.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for coming.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right, bro.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.